First of all, welcome to the channel and thank you for stopping by. When time permits, please consider subscribing. I would greatly appreciate it. 7 months ago, I was on the Smoky Mountain 500 with Greg and Timmy from the Bearded Grump and Cheyenne from ADV Gourmet. It was a very rainy trip for us. And what would occur is everything would get soaked while we were riding. Then we would set up our tent in the rain, and then Timmy would put up the Timmy tarp and we'd get a fire going under some cover. And then we would go ahead, get a fire started, and try to dry ourselves and maybe some of our gear out. Now, Cheyenne had a great idea. He was going to dry his boots out, and he carefully put his boots up on sticks and started drying them. Then Greg decided to dry his boots, and I decided to start drying my gloves. Unfortunately, Greg burned his boots, and I melted my gloves. When I got home from that trip, I reached out to Chemimoto because I'd been testing some of their gear, and I said, I actually melted my Chemimoto gloves. Could you send me another pair or two? And they went ahead and did that. Now what we have here are the 2 pairs of Chemimoto gloves that they sent out at the time. These are the leather street gloves, and these are the artificial materials adventure riding gloves. Since I do ride street bikes and my adventure bikes, I said, go ahead and send me one of each. I'll try them out on both bikes and tell you what I think about them. So that's what we're going to do here today. Now these gloves right here are leather, and what I like about that is they look really cool when you're on your street bike. I am vain. Having a nice looking glove when I'm riding a Yamaha is, it's good. I enjoy it. Now, I don't generally wear street gloves as a rule. I've always just been cheap and gone ahead and worn whatever glove I was wearing. But when I had this opportunity, I did get them, and I'll tell you what, I really like the look. I really like the plain leather. I went ahead and got them in a brown because I simply have too much black gear already, and I think that it goes very, very well with my black jacket that I tend to wear on my street bikes. As far as these gloves go, the first surprise was they're tight. Now, I wear a large glove in just about everything, and I found that the large on these was indeed a little bit tight. And so these are XLs. I went ahead and got the XLs, and they fit just like larges do in every other glove. And this is my 3rd pair of Chemimoto gloves, so this is surprising that they don't fit exactly the same. But if you are gonna pick up a pair of these, I would recommend just sizing up one, and they work just fine. They're very comfortable. They have armor here. They do not have significant amounts of armor on the palms though. I definitely prefer to have slide protection here because whenever we fall off our bikes, the first thing we do is the same thing we did when we fell off of our bicycles as children. We put our hands out and try to stop ourselves. Now these are leather, and I'm sure that's going to offer some protection, but I would have felt much more comfortable if we had more significant palm protection. That said, they're not, cheap gloves. This is a good heavy leather, and they're going to offer more protection than, say, an MX glove or a glove that's made of synthetic materials. Speaking of synthetic materials, let's take a look at the other ones. Now, these are the gloves that I've been wearing almost exclusively for the last 6 months. These are incredibly comfortable gloves. They have quite a bit of ventilation, but I would say they do tend to run a little warmer than most motorcycle gloves, which is just fine for me. I don't mind my hands being a little bit warm. They're not overly perspiring. And the good thing about that is I was able to wear them in April, and I've worn them as late as December. no real issues. With my heated grips, these have been quite good. These gloves are made of a synthetic material like most of the gloves are, with a little bit of pleather here, and we got hard plastic, and my ever favorite palm slide protection. Especially on the adventure bike, I want to make sure that when my hands go down, it's not the meat of my hands jabbing into things. So I've found these to be excellent. Comfort-wise, they're breathable, they're a soft material. The armor loosened up a little bit. It's not a hard plastic, it's more of a fill material. A hard plastic would probably be safer, but I do feel comfortable in these that if I go down, at least my skin isn't hitting the ground first. It's gonna be the padding. The fingers have a little bit of padding there, which I don't know what that's for exactly. I think if I hit myself, it would be on the knuckles, and that's why everything has knuckle protection. I'm not entirely sure how much that would do, or if my fingers would even hit the ground hard enough to need it, but they do have the armor there. Both gloves have the typical Velcro, works quite well, no complaints whatsoever. Now, as I said earlier, I've been wearing these gloves for months and months and months, and there is very tiny amounts of wear, primarily because I made the mistake of washing them and drying them multiple times. And I did find that that would bring up the material a little. And the reason I've done that is I ride in the rain a lot, and synthetic materials don't smell great after you've sweat in them all day and then been rained on and then they dry. So I can tell you that these survived washing and drying at least 24 times in the time I've owned them. All right, let's close this out and I'll tell you what I think of both of the gloves and why I wear these more often. I've had both of these pairs of gloves the exact same amount of time. However, these are worn on a daily basis, and these are worn on Sunday when I take my street bike out. And the reason for that is these are comfortable to wear, but being leather, they don't really breathe. My go-to choice is always going to be these gloves, unless I really, want the look, because these gloves are offering, I feel, a little bit more protection and significantly more breathability. I don't believe for an instant that if I sweat in these and get them wet, I can do anything about it other than throw them away. These are a durable glove that can be easily maintained, and they can be abused. I'm not sure you can abuse goatskin leather. I know you can abuse this material. So these are the ones I would pick if you're only gonna have one pair of gloves. If they'd only sent me these, I'd say, hey, these are great gloves. I take them out Sunday when I go ride the twisties, and I would have had to buy another pair of gloves. But with these Kemimoto gloves, I don't have to buy another pair of gloves. I wore these all season. I took them to Canada, I took them to South Dakota, I took them to Utah, back and forth to Tennessee. They just keep holding up. And I'm sure they're gonna hold up at least through the next couple of seasons. All right, if you stuck around, I appreciate it. Take care.